Welcome to The Rise with Sterling Phoenix. This is the show for ambitious leaders and bold professionals who want clarity, momentum, and results without burning out. Let's go. It's time to stop hoping for word of mouth and engineer it. You see, word of mouth isn't luck, it's design. And if you're still hoping people talk about you, you're not leading growth. You're waiting for a miracle. I'm talking about the startup founder who launches a, quote, game-changing product and sits back waiting for it to go viral. 3 months later, they're wondering why nobody is talking about it. Or the marketing leader who creates brilliant content and then prays the algorithm picks it up. And it doesn't. It never does. Or the executive who pitches their company with a 47-slide deck full of features and benefits and wonders why investors don't remember them the next day. You're not failing because your idea isn't good enough. You're failing because you didn't engineer the moment when someone would want to share it. With AI-driven feeds deciding what surfaces, with attention more fractured than ever, with algorithms prioritizing what's already spreading, hoping for word of mouth is business suicide. You either engineer virality or you disappear into the noise. And here's the part that should really wake you up. Your competitors have already figured this out. They're not hoping that their ideas spread. They're designing them to spread. And if you're ready to stop waiting for miracles and start engineering momentum, then this episode is your blueprint. I'm Sterling Phoenix, and this is a fire episode. That means we're cutting through the uncomfortable myths and getting to what actually works today. So, let's take on one of the most dangerous beliefs in business, that word of mouth just happens. That if you build something good enough, people are naturally going to talk about it. That virality is like lightning in a bottle. It's unpredictable, magical, and mostly luck. That's a lie. And it costs you everything. Because here's the reality. Word of mouth is not magic. It's simply mechanics. Virality isn't chance. It's design. And the companies that are scaling aren't the ones with the best products. They're the ones who understand the exact psychological and structural triggers that make people share. Think about the last time something went viral in your industry. A post, a product launch, or a piece of content. Did it spread because it was the, quote, best thing out there? Or did it spread because it had specific engineered elements that made people want to pass it along? The answer is always the latter. And here's what most leaders get catastrophically wrong. They create content and products and messaging for consumption, not for sharing. They optimize for, does this communicate our value? Instead of, will anyone want to tell someone else about this? Those are two completely different goals, and only one of them creates momentum. So in the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to break down the exact mechanics of engineered word of mouth, those psychological triggers that make people share, and then the structural elements that turn products into viral loops, and the messaging frameworks that turn complex ideas into one-liners people repeat at lunch. And why, in the AI era, engineering word of mouth isn't about growth. It's about survival. Because if humans aren't passing your ideas around, AI models won't surface them either. Visibility is earned through virality, and virality is engineered. Let's build. Let me tell you about a conversation I had recently with a Series A founder. Brilliant product. Solving a real problem, beautiful execution, and absolutely no traction. I asked him, what's your growth strategy? He said, well, we're building something people love, so we're expecting word of mouth to kick in once we hit product market fit. And I said, what are you doing to actually engineer that word of mouth? He looked confused. Engineer it? I mean, if the product's good, people will talk about it naturally, right? No, they won't. And 3 months later, he's still waiting, still hoping. still burning runway while his amazing product sits in obscurity. Here's the lie that kills companies. If we're good enough, word of mouth will just happen. It's the startup version of if you build it, they will come. And it's just delusional. Because the reality is there are thousands of amazing products, brilliant ideas, and valuable services that no one ever talks about. Not because they're not good or even great, but because they weren't designed to spread. Take a moment and think about your own behavior. When was the last time you shared something just because it was good? You don't. You share things because they make you look smart in your network, express something you feel really strongly about, help someone you care about, or tell a story about who you are. Sharing is never about the thing. It's always about the sharer. And if you're not designing for that psychological reality, you're not getting word of mouth, no matter how good you are. So, here's what I've found about hoping for word of mouth actually sounds like in practice. We'll post on social and see what happens. Or we're just going to focus on building a great product and let the results speak for themselves. Or we'll create good content and hope it gets picked up. Or if we deliver value, customers will naturally become advocates. Every single one of those statements is a version of, we don't know how to create momentum, so we're crossing our fingers. And here's what happens when hope is your strategy. You launch, you have tons of enthusiasm, you're super excited, and you have genuine belief that this will be different this time. And then you wait. And you refresh the analytics, and you check the social metrics, and you look for signs of traction. And then you rationalize. Well, it's early. Word of mouth takes time. We just need to be patient. And then you watch your competitors grow. Because while you're being patient, someone else with a worse product but better viral mechanics is scaling past you. And then you panic. Because 3 months in, and then 6 months and a year in, you're still not seeing the organic growth you expected. And then you blame the wrong things. Well, you say, no, well, the market isn't ready. The timing is off. We need better PR. We need more features. But the problem, you never engineered the sharing trigger. So here's the career level truth of this whole thing as a marketer. When you tell a board or an investor or a recruiter, we're counting on word of mouth, what they actually hear is, we don't understand growth mechanics. Because sophisticated leaders know that word of mouth is the result of engineered triggers, not a growth strategy in itself. So let me show you the difference. An unsophisticated answer sounds something like, our growth strategy is word of mouth. We're building something people love, so we expect customers to tell their friends. What the person listening hears is, we're hoping for magic. We can't articulate a systematic approach to growth. We're really super high risk. On the other hand, a sophisticated answer sounds something more like, we've engineered 3 viral mechanisms into the product. First, every deliverable our customers create includes a subtle credit line that drives inbound. Second, we built network effects into the collaboration features so single users naturally pull in team members. And third, we created shareable artifacts, reports, dashboards, insights that make our users look good when they share internally, which creates word of mouth within target accounts. We're seeing a 1.4 viral coefficient on the collaboration feature, and 23% of new signups attribute to shared artifacts. The person listening hears, this person understands virality mechanics. They can articulate specific and measurable approaches. They're de-risked. Do you see the difference? The first is just hoping. The other is engineering. And right now, only the engineers survive. So, why do smart leaders fall into that hope trap? It's because we worship the wrong stories. We hear about the startup that went viral overnight and the product that took off organically, or the idea that caught fire, and we assume that it was luck, magic, being at the right place at the right time. But behind the scenes, it wasn't. Behind every overnight success is a team that engineers specific triggers. Dropbox gave extra storage for referrals and henceforth engineered virality through incentive. And Slack made every workplace invitation into a viral loop. It was engineered virality through product mechanics. And Calendly turned every meeting link into brand exposure. And henceforth, engineered virality through distribution. And then Clubhouse made exclusivity the product. And then they engineered virality through FOMO. None of these just happened. They were designed to spread. And the leaders who built them weren't hoping for word of mouth. They were architecting the exact moments when users would have a reason to share. And here's why this matters more than ever now. Because right now, organic reach is almost dead. Social media algorithms are prioritizing engagement, not chronology. AI-driven feeds surface what's spreading, and search is increasingly dominated by AI overviews pulling from popular sources, which means if your content, product, or message doesn't have engineered viral triggers, it is never going to get seen. You're not competing against other companies for attention. You're competing against the algorithmic threshold of, quote, interesting enough to amplify. And algorithms don't amplify good. They amplify spreading. So if you're not engineering the spread, you're basically invisible. All right, now let's get into the actual mechanics of this. Because once you understand the psychological triggers that make people share, you can engineer them into everything you create moving forward. And I'm going to break down the 4 core triggers that drive all word of mouth. First, identity. Second, emotion. Third, utility. And fourth, finally, story. If you master these 4, you'll never create something that dies in silence again. So let's start with identity. People share things that say something about who they are, not about the thing itself, but about them personally. We share to construct our identity in the eyes of others. Think about the last article you shared on LinkedIn. Why did you share it? Well, I'll bet you it's one of these things. It either made you look smart, like, I'm ahead of this trend, or it made you look bold, I'm willing to challenge conventional thinking, or it might have made you look thoughtful, I care about this issue, or it made you look successful, I align with high performers. You weren't just sharing information, you were curating your personal brand. And this is true for everything that spreads. When someone shares your product, they're saying, I'm the kind of person who discovers cool things before others. Or when someone shares your product, they're saying, I'm the kind of person who thinks at this level. Or when somebody shares your company announcement, they're saying, I'm connected to impressive companies and opportunities. So here's the engineering question. What does sharing your thing say about the sharer? If the answer is nothing, or they like my product, then I'm sorry, but you're not getting word of mouth. But if the answer is they look like an insider, they look innovative, they look strategic, or they look ahead of the curve, then you're engineering identity value right into the share. Now let's take some practical applications of this. So like for products, you build early access, beta programs, or exclusive features that make users feel like insiders. So that they can be like, I'm using the AI tool that's not publicly available yet. That's an identity value. Or for content, you frame insights as what most people miss, or the strategy top performers use. When someone shares it, they're aligning themselves with that group. Or for launches, you might do something like creating a tiered access. People love sharing. I got early access to this before it went public because it signals status. So here's an identity driven viral example. Superhuman, the email client. They charged $30 a month and required a wait list. Why? Not scarcity for scarcity's sake, but because sharing I'm using Superhuman signaled I value my time enough to pay for premium tools. I'm productive. I'm part of an elite group who got access. That's identity engineering, and it created massive word of mouth. Now, let's move on to trigger 2, emotion. People share when something hits them hard enough that they have to express it. The emotions that drive sharing are gentle. They're intense. Things like awe. This is mind-blowing. Everyone needs to see this. Or anger. This is outrageous. People need to know about this. Or relief. This solved a problem I've struggled with. Others are struggling too. Or delight. This made me smile. I want others to smile. Or fear. This is a threat and my network needs to be warned. You notice, mild positive feelings don't really drive shares. That's nice doesn't spread. That's interesting doesn't spread. Only high arousal emotions spread. So here's the engineering question. What emotion does this trigger? And is it intense enough to demand sharing? Because if your content or product or message lands as mildly agreeable, it's dead on arrival. But if it lands as, I have to tell someone about this, then you've engineered emotional virality. So let's look at some practical applications. For example, thought leadership. Don't be balanced, be bold. Take a clear stance. Challenge conventional wisdom. Make people feel something strong enough to share. Something like, AI will probably impact some industries. Well, that doesn't share. But most companies are automating the wrong things and it's killing them. That spreads. See what we did there? Or for product launches, don't just list features. Show the emotional before and after. Saying, our tool saves you 2 hours a week is utility. It's probably not going to spread. But remember the last time you worked until midnight catching up on admin? That's over. Well, that's emotional relief, and people are going to share relief. Or for customer stories, don't just share the metrics. Share the emotional turning point. Saying we increase conversion by 23% doesn't spread. But saying the CMO told us, for the first time in 3 years, I'm not dreading board meetings. We finally have proof. Well, that's emotional, and that spreads. Here's an emotion-driven virality example. Think back. Apple's 1984 Super Bowl ad didn't explain the Macintosh's technical specs. It made you feel like you were part of a revolution. Awe plus identity. And it generated massive virality. Now let's talk about the third trigger, utility. People share things that make them look good by being helpful. They say things like, I found this, it helped me, and now I'm sharing it with you. This is the pay it forward trigger. And it's incredibly powerful in B2B. Because when someone shares something useful, they're strengthening relationships. Hey, I'm thinking about your problems. Or they're building social capital. I provide value to my network. Or they're demonstrating expertise. I know where to find good resources that solve problems. So here's the engineering question. Is this so helpful that someone looks good by passing it along? If it's self-promotional, people will not share it. Nobody wants to be a walking billboard. But if it's genuinely useful and sharing makes the sharer look helpful and informed, then you've engineered utility virality. So here's some practical applications. Let's start with content. You create tools, frameworks, and templates, not just think pieces. So here's an example. Here's why productivity systems fail is interesting. And you might get some shares. But saying something more like, here's the 3-question filter I use to audit any productivity system in 15 minutes is useful. And you're going to get lots of shares. Or for products, you need to build features that solve immediate painful problems and then make them easy to share. Loom didn't spread because it was better video. It spread because here's a 2-minute video explaining this instead of a 10-paragraph email was utility that made senders look good. Or for sales materials, you need to create assets that your customers can use even if they don't buy. Yes, I really said it. Even if they don't buy, you still need to deliver value. Examples of this would be ROI calculators, industry benchmarks, comparison guides. When they share these with their teams, they're sharing your brand, but they're doing it because it makes them look informed. So here's a utility-driven virality example. HubSpot created a marketing grader tool. It's free, it's useful, it gives you a score and recommendations, and people share it with colleagues not to promote HubSpot, but to help their team understand their marketing gaps. That's utility engineering, and it drove millions in word of mouth. Okay, let's move on to the 4th trigger, story. People share things they can retell. Complexity does not spread, but simplicity does. So if someone can't summarize your idea in one sentence, then they're not going to share it. Because sharing requires them to explain it. And if the explanation is hard, sharing just does not happen. So here's the engineering question to ask. What's the one-liner someone will say about this at lunch? Not the 3-paragraph explanation, not the full context, just that single sentence. And if you don't know what that sentence is, then your audience definitely doesn't. And if they don't have a language for it, then they can't share it. So here's some practical applications of that. For positioning, you want to distill your value into a single memorable phrase. Something like, we help companies automate workflows is entirely forgettable. Or you could say, we turn 40-hour processes into 40-minute processes. That's repeatable. Or for thought leadership, engineer the soundbite before you write the long form. So, systems eat superheroes for breakfast is a phrase people can remember and repeat. That's story engineering. It becomes the meme that spreads your idea. Or for product launches, lead with a transformation, not the features. Our platform has 47 integrations and machine learning powered analytics. Does not spread. But you could say, the sales intelligence platform that tells you which deals to chase and which to drop, well, that spreads. Here's a story-driven virality example. Tesla didn't spread because of its battery specs. It spread because of the story, the electric car that beats supercars. One line. Everyone could repeat it. That's massive word of mouth. Now that you know the 4 triggers, let's talk about how you can do an audit of it. So here's how you engineer word of mouth into anything you create. Before you launch, before you publish, or before you pitch, I want you to stop and run this 4 trigger audit. Let's start with identity. What does sharing say about the sharer? Do they look smart or bold or ahead? And then emotion. What emotion does this trigger? Is it intense enough to demand sharing? And then utility. Is this helpful enough that sharing it makes someone look good? And finally, story. Can someone explain this in one sentence? Will they say that at lunch? You don't need all four triggers, but you do need at least one. And the more of them that you can stack into it, then the more it spreads. So if you can't answer these questions, you have not engineered virality. You're just hoping for luck. And hope, that's not strategy. All right. You understand the psychological triggers now. So let's talk about the structural mechanics. Because virality isn't just about hitting emotional buttons. It's about building mechanisms into your product or your content and your go-to-market that make sharing inevitable. Let me walk you through the 4 core mechanics that turn word of mouth from occasional to systematic. First off, you build share hooks into the product. The most powerful word of mouth doesn't come from marketing. It actually comes from product usage itself. Every time someone uses your product, they should be creating moments where others encounter your brand. This isn't about putting share on LinkedIn buttons everywhere. That's lazy. And it doesn't work. This is about making the core product experience inherently viral. So, for example, the Dropbox model. Dropbox didn't spread through ads. It spread because every time you shared a file, the recipient had to create an account to access it. The product mechanic itself was the viral loop, and they accelerated it by giving both parties extra storage for referrals. You weren't just sharing files, you were sharing a reason for others to join. That's engineered virality. Or let's take a look at the Calendly model. Every meeting link is brand exposure. Every person who receives a Calendly invite sees the product in action. They don't see an ad. They see utility. They go, oh, wait, this makes scheduling easier? I should use this too. The product usage itself is the marketing. That's engineered virality. Or the Loom model. Every video you send is a Loom advertisement, but it doesn't feel like an ad because it's solving a problem for the recipient. Watch this quick video instead of reading my long email is utility. And when the recipient thinks, I should use this instead of writing long emails, then the viral loop completes. That's engineered virality. So your engineering question is, what happens every time someone uses your product that exposes it to others? If the answer is nothing, you're missing the most powerful growth lever that you have. So ask, how can I make product usage itself create distribution? A few examples are things like, first, do your deliverables include subtle brand attribution? Second, do collaboration features naturally pull in additional users? Third, does value increase when users invite others? So you gain network effects. And finally, are there share-worthy outputs users want to circulate? Things like reports or insights or dashboards. Stop building products that end with the user and start building products where usage creates exposure. So, mechanic number 2. Make the story easy to repeat. Complex pitches, they don't spread. They can't. But one-liners do. So you need to engineer the exact phrase people will use to describe you. Not hope that they find the right words. You give them the words. So a positioning one-liner framework looks something like this. You say, we help, and then you add target audience, and then add achieve outcome, and then the unique mechanism, but you have to make it conversational and make it memorable. Here's a couple examples. We help B2B companies turn ghost quotes into deals when clients won't go public. Awesome. We help executives build momentum systems instead of productivity prisons. Interesting. And finally, we help automate the revenue leaks most companies don't even know they have. All of these are engineered one-liners. They're designed to be repeated at lunch, in Slack, or in board meetings. So the test is, can someone remember and repeat this after hearing it once? If not, it's too complex and you need to simplify it. That's the soundbite strategy. Beyond your positioning, you need sound bites for your key ideas. Short little phrases that capture the complex concepts in ways that people can actually remember and share. So, for example, systems eat superheroes for breakfast, or productivity without clarity equals burnout, or case studies are death, or silence is worse than imperfection. Notice these aren't full explanations. They're just provocative little simplifications that make people want to know more. That's the whole point. That soundbite spreads, and then people seek the full content. So here's your engineering. For every major idea, product feature, or value proposition, here's what you need to create. First, the one-line version for social shares and quick mentions. And then the one paragraph version for emails and short pitches. And then the 3-minute version for meetings and presentations. Most companies, they only build number 3. And then they wonder why nothing spreads. Well, number 1 is what spreads. You have to engineer it first. Okay, mechanic 3. Use credibility multipliers. Self-promotion does not travel far, but third-party validation travels pretty much everywhere. So when you say, we're great, it's marketing. But when someone else says they're great, it's proof. So you need to engineer advocates into your growth strategy. So here's the analyst playbook. Get mentioned by Gartner, Forrester, IDC, whatever analyst firms that actually matter in your space. Not just for credibility with buyers, but for credibility multipliers. Being able to say, we were named a Gartner Cool Vendor spreads farther than we launched a new feature. Because analysts are perceived as objective, and that validation carries weight. Or you create a customer advocate program. You don't just have happy customers. You need to turn them into actual advocates. Give them reasons to talk about you. Things like early access to features. The identity that they gain is that they're insiders. Or case study co-creation. The utility to them is that they get brand exposure. Or speaking opportunities. The identity that they get is that they're thought leaders. Or advisory board positions. The identity that they gain is that they're influential. The next option is the community strategy. Build spaces where your users actually talk to each other. Things like Slack groups or forums or events. Word of mouth happens faster in community than in isolation because communities normalize talking about solutions. They say things like, what tool do you use for X? And that becomes a natural conversation that actually drives recommendations. And then the next option is the partnership leverage. Every partnership should include co-marketing, not because you need their help distributing, but because partner validation is credibility. We partnered with whatever respective brand signals trust, and trust spreads. So your engineering question from this is, who can validate us besides us? And how do we systematically activate those validators? Your list goes, industry analysts, media outlets, complementary product companies, customer advocates, community leaders, and your advisory board members. And then you build a program that gives them reasons to talk about you. All right, mechanic 4. You need to design moments for screenshots. Here's the current reality. Half of a word of mouth is happening visually. People screenshot interesting things and then they share them in DMs or Slack channels or group chats. A lot of the time they don't link to your blog post. They just take a screenshot of the key insight. And they don't share your full product demo. They screenshot that wow moment. So you need to design for screenshots. So for content, that means like pull quotes that stand alone, or data visualizations that tell a story without context, or frameworks that fit into a single image, or bold statements that provoke reaction. You need to take these and make them visually distinct. Different background color, clear typography, easy to read in a screenshot. Or for products, that means dashboard views that actually make users look good. Like, wow, look at these results. Or before and after comparisons that are instantly impressive. Or insights that are shareable, like my AI tool just told me this. Or outputs that carry your brand subtly, not obnoxiously. For social content, stop writing threads that require reading 12 tweets and just create individual tweaks that work as standalone screenshots. And stop building carousels that need all 10 slides and just make slide 3 screenshot worthy on its own. The screenshot test is just so simple. Just look at any piece of content you create. Now imagine someone screenshots just one part of it. Without the full context, without reading the whole thing, does that screenshot still create value? Does it still make sense? Does it make someone want to actually share it or learn more? If not, you haven't designed for how people actually share today. Here's a real example. Naval Ravikant's tweet spread like wildfire. Why? Because every tweet is screenshot worthy. Each one is a complete thought. It stands alone. Seek wealth, not money or status. Wealth is having assets that earn while you sleep. Perfect. That's engineered for screenshots. It's a complete thought. Provocative, memorable, shareable. So here's the compounding effect. This is what happens when you build in all 4 mechanics. Product usage creates exposure. Mechanic number 1. People talk about it in their own words. Mechanic 2. Third parties validate it. Mechanic 3. Screenshots spread it further. Mechanic 4. More people use the product. The cycle repeats and accelerates. Now, that's a growth engine. That's engineered virality. And it compounds. The more it spreads, the more it spreads. But only if you engineer in all 4 mechanics. If you miss one, then the engine sputters. Now let's talk about why engineering word of mouth matters even more in the AI era. Because the rules of visibility have dramatically changed, and most leaders haven't adapted yet. There are new gatekeepers. Over the past decade, the gatekeepers of visibility were things like the social media algorithms, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and the search engines like Google, and media outlets, things like publications and podcasts. If you could game those systems, then you could get distribution. But now there's a new gatekeeper, AI models. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and Google's AI overviews, these systems are deciding what information surfaces when people ask questions. And they're not just surfacing random content. They're surfacing what's already spreading. Because AI models are trained on what gets linked to the most, what gets cited the most, what gets referenced the most, and what appears in the most contexts. The translation, if your content ideas or brand aren't spreading through human word of mouth, then AI is not going to surface them either. So, here's the feedback loop that now determines your market presence. Human word of mouth creates links and citations and mentions. And then AI training data captures this. And then AI models surface you in responses. And then more people discover you and more human word of mouth happens. And then this cycle accelerates. But if you're not in that loop, if humans aren't talking about you, if they're not linking to you or they're not citing you, then you're invisible to AI. And increasingly, invisible to AI means invisible to buyers. More and more every day, the first touch point in a buyer's journey is not your website. It's asking an AI, what's the best solution for whatever their problem is? And if you're not in that AI's response, then you don't exist. So what makes AI models surface your content? It's definitely not SEO tricks. And it's not keyword stuffing. It's not what worked in 2020. It's not even what worked in 2023. AI models prioritize signals of credibility and spread. That means citations from authoritative sources. When respected publications or analysts or thought leaders reference you, AI weighs that highly. That also means cross-platform presence. When you appear in multiple contexts, things like articles and podcasts and social and communities, then AI sees you as significant. And it also means engagement signals. When your content gets shared or commented on or linked to, then AI interprets that as being valuable. And recency and momentum. Fresh content that's spreading now gets prioritized over old content that spread years ago. And consistency of message. When your positioning or your sound bites or your key ideas appear consistently across sources, then AI recognizes you as authoritative on that topic. Do you notice the pattern here? Every single one of these is driven by word of mouth. You can't directly optimize for AI, but you can engineer word of mouth, and word of mouth creates the signals that AI uses. So here's what engineering virality looks like in the AI area. First of all, you need to make your ideas citable. AI models pull from sources that are easy to reference. Things like academic papers, industry reports, and well-structured articles. So you format your insights like research, clear frameworks with names, data and metrics, even if it's self-reported, define methodologies, citable quotes and conclusions. Here's my opinion does not get cited. But things like the Clarity First AI filter, a 4-question framework for evaluating automation ROI, well, that gets cited. The second strategy is that you need to spread your sound bites. When the same phrase appears across multiple sources, then AI recognizes it as being significant. So you don't just create sound bites, you deploy them everywhere. Your podcast, your articles, your social content, guest appearances, partner content, customer quotes. An example would be like you say something like systems eat superheroes for breakfast. That should show up in so many places that when AI is asked about productivity or leadership or systems thinking, that phrase surfaces. Now, strategy 3 is you build link velocity. AI models track how quickly something is being referenced. So you don't just create one great piece of content. You create content that drives other people to link to you. Original research, people link to data. Or frameworks and tools, people link to useful resources, like that HubSpot example we talked about earlier. Or provocative takes, people link to what they're debating. And comprehensive guides, people link to definitive resources. Your goal is to be the source people reference when explaining a concept in your domain. Now, strategy 4, dominate a niche first. AI models use topic clustering. They identify who's authoritative on specific subjects. So don't try to be known for everything. Just own one thing completely. Saying something like, we talk about business strategy. It's too broad. AI can't position you. But we're the definitive source on engineering, word of mouth, and B2B. Now that's specific, and AI can position you. You need to go deep before you go wide. Dominate a single niche. Let AI recognize you as the voice on that topic, and then expand. Want to know if you're building AI era visibility? Do this quick, simple test. Open ChatGPT, Claude, or Perplexity, and ask questions related to your domain. What's the best way to, and then insert whatever problem to solve, or who are the thought leaders in your space, or ask what frameworks exist for whatever your area of expertise is. Do you show up? If not, you're not spreading enough. AI doesn't even know you exist. That's your wake-up call. But here's the key. You can't optimize directly for AI. AI is a second-order effect. The first-order effect is the human behavior. Engineer for humans. AI visibility follows then. You create content that humans want to share using those 4 triggers. And then you build products that humans want to talk about, which is the 4 mechanics. And you make ideas that humans want to cite, which is the story and utility. And when humans spread your ideas, AI learns to surface them. So the strategy isn't optimized for AI. It's engineering human sharing. The AI visibility follows naturally. All right, you understand the framework. Now, let me show you what this thinking actually looks like when you apply it. Because the difference between hoping for word of mouth and engineering it isn't really about doing more, it's about thinking differently. So, let's look at two different real scenarios. First, a product launch. So, the hoping approach looks something like a SaaS company launches a new analytics feature. They write a blog post titled Introducing Advanced Analytics Dashboard. And then they list the features, customizable widgets, real-time data, exportable reports, and then they post it on social. And they send it out to their email list, and they wait. A few customers will try it, and some will like it, but nobody talks about it. There's no word of mouth and no viral moment. And 3 months later, they end up confused. The feature's great. Why isn't anybody sharing it or talking about it? Now, if we take the engineered approach, same company, same features, just completely different thinking. First, they ask, what would make someone want to share this? They realize, okay, well, nobody shares features. People share results. So they reframe the whole thing entirely. So instead of saying advanced analytics dashboard, they create the report that makes you look like a Fortune 500 CMO. Now they're hitting identity. Sharing this says, I have access to enterprise level insights. And then they build in a share hook. Every report generated includes a subtle footer. Report powered by company name with a link. Nothing obnoxious, just present. So when someone shares their impressive dashboard with their team or their boss, the product spreads. And they design for screenshots. The dashboard defaults to a clean, impressive view that looks good in a screenshot. Bold numbers, clear visualizations, the kind of things someone wants to Slack to their team saying, hey, look at what I just pulled. And they engineer utility. They create 3 built-in report templates for common use cases. So like a board meeting snapshot, a monthly report brief, quarterly executive summary. Now, users aren't building from scratch. They're using templates that make them look prepared and professional. And then there's the story element. Their one-liner becomes, turn 3 hours of data pulling into a 3-minute board-ready report. Now that's repeatable. That's what something says at lunch when a colleague complains about reporting taking forever. Same feature, completely different message engineering. The first approach got 127 users in 3 months. The second got 1,847 users in the first month. That's a 1.6 viral coefficient. That's the difference between hoping and engineering. Now let's take a look at scenario 2, a thought leadership article. So with the hoping approach, a consulting firm writes an article, The 5 Best Practices for Digital Transformation in 2025. It's well researched, it's accurate, it's generic. And they publish it, and they post it on LinkedIn, and they get 43 likes, most from their own team. No shares, no comments, no word of mouth. Now, the engineered approach, same firm, same insights, just different execution. They ask, hey, what's the one thing here that would make someone look smart by sharing it? They realize that their most provocative insight is buried somewhere deep into paragraph 7. Most digital transformation fails because companies automate the wrong things first. So they pull that forward. New headline. You're automating the wrong things first. And it's why your digital transformation is failing. Now they're hitting emotion, specifically relief mixed with validation. Oh, thank God, it's not just us. And then they create a framework and name it, the Clarity First Automation Filter. 4 questions to ask before automating anything. Now they have utility. Someone can screenshot those 4 questions and share them in their next transformation meeting. When they do, they look like the person who gets it. And then they engineer the story. The soundbite is automate your chaos, and you just get chaos faster. That's memorable, and that's repeatable. That's what someone says in a meeting when someone suggests automating broken processes. Then they design for screenshots. They pull out the 4-question framework into a clean visual, clear typography, super easy to read, screenshot ready. And they add a credibility multiplier. They quote a client, with permission, of course, that says, "We were 6 months into a transformation before we realized we'd automated our dysfunction. This framework would have saved us $2 million in a year of pain." Same insights, completely different message engineering. The first article got 600 views and, well, frankly, died. The second got 47,000 views, 890 shares, and was cited in 3 industry newsletters and generated 23 inbound leads. That's the difference between hoping and engineering. Now, notice what changed in both of these examples. It wasn't the substance. The features were the same. The insights were the same. It was the engineering of the message. They asked, what makes this shareable? What triggers are we hitting? What mechanics are we building in? And then they designed specifically for those answers. This is what engineering word of mouth really looks like. Not hoping the product is good enough, not hoping the content is interesting enough, but deliberately designing the moments when someone would want to share. So it's your turn. Here's what I want you to do this week. Take one thing you're working on, a product feature, a piece of content, a campaign, or a pitch, and run it through the engineering lens. What's the identity value? What does sharing this say about the sharer? And what's the emotional trigger? What high arousal emotion does this create? And what's the utility? How does sharing this make someone look helpful or smart? And what's the story? Can someone explain this in one sentence at lunch? If you can't answer at least one of those clearly, you're just hoping for word of mouth, not engineering it. So redesign. Don't add more features. Don't write longer content. Engineer the share trigger. Build in the hook. Make it screenshot worthy. Create the one-liner and add in the credibility. That's how word of mouth gets engineered. It's time to wrap up. So here's what I want you to remember from this episode. Word of mouth isn't luck. It's not magic, and it's not something you earn by being good enough. It's absolutely engineered through specific triggers and mechanics: identity, emotion, utility, and story. Share hooks, repeatability, credibility, and screenshots. The companies that create scale today aren't the ones with the best products. They're the ones who understand how to make people want to share. And in an AI-driven world where algorithms decide what surfaces and what dies, if you're not engineering in virality, you're invisible. So stop hoping your next launch goes viral and stop waiting for people to naturally talk about you. And stop praying that the algorithm is going to pick you up magically. It's not going to happen. You need to start engineering the exact moments when someone would want to share. That's how momentum gets built. And that's how ideas spread. And that's how businesses scale. Word of mouth is design. So design it. This has been The Rise with Sterling Phoenix, a fire episode on engineering word of mouth. If this changed how you think about what makes ideas spread, here's your next move. Share one insight from this episode with someone who needs to hear it, because that's how engineered word of mouth actually works. Take a moment, subscribe to The Rise on Substack, and connect with me personally on LinkedIn. Clarity, momentum, no burnout. That's the rock.